922, after intense spiritual practice, a man entered an ecstatic state and started running in the streets of Baghdad shouting, "Ana al-Haq." The man's name was Mansur al-Hallaj, and the authorities at the time found this extremely offensive, as Ana al-Haq basically translates to "I am God." He was nastily executed shortly after. What many saw as a claim to divinity, others interpreted as an annihilation of the ego, which meant that in his mind, al-Hallaj was doing the exact opposite of what he was being accused. He had removed his ego completely and was allowing God to speak through him. Al-Hallaj was a teacher and active practitioner of Sufism. Most of you have probably seen Sufism somewhat like this.
You see, this might be the most popular image of Sufism in the West, but in fact it's a very specific ritual from a very specific order of Sufism in Turkey called the Mevleviya. Sufism is in fact much more than that. It dates back all the way to the 9th century and has a very long and complex history leading up to recent years, where it's actively being targeted by radical Islamic groups through acts of terrorism. I'm here today in Lahore, Pakistan, where Sufism is actively being practiced through unique rituals to better understand its history, talk to the people and learn what's behind their philosophy. Stay with me as I take you along through the forgotten practice of Sufism here in Pakistan.
You can say it's an international movement. In all parts of the world, you'll find a certain creed of people who don't abide by the norms, but they are connected through some spiritual connection. You might be religious, but at the same time believe more in humanity, human values, like you are more willing to share your food with others. No one is superior. It doesn't have to do with your worldly positions.
Okay, so Sufism is about sharing and humanity as a whole, but the real question is it part of Islam?
To understand the meaning and origin of Sufism, we have to go all the way back to the death of the Prophet Muhammad. You see, many consider Sufis not to be connected to Islam, when in fact historically that is definitely not the case. In the immediate aftermath of the Prophet's death, and as the Islamic world was expanding, many people were struggling to define Islam and how it should be practiced. In these early years, many different traditions emerged. Among them were fiqh, kalam, falsafa, and Sufism. While it's not certain when Sufism came to be, we do know that around the 8th and 9th century there were certain people in and around Baghdad called Sufis. Many believe that the word Sufi comes from the word Suf, which means wool, and is the clothing Sufis wore at the time, as they rejected more expensive clothing to be more connected to Allah. But what is Sufism actually about?
To better understand that, I headed to some of the shrines where Sufis here in Lahore religiously gather every Thursday to pay tribute to Allah in their own way.
सूफी ऐस मारे आया कि अच्छी तरबियत देगा, अल्लाह पाक दी कलाम देंदा हो कि अच्छे रास्ते ते चलो, अच्छी बात करो, किसी ना धोखा ना करो, किसी ना फरेब ना करो, जिन्ने जोगा हो सकता इंसान अगले दे नाल प्यार करे। फकर दा ऐ मच कि हर किसी नूं एक मुठ रखना, इहदे विच झोक नहीं गया उत्ते की ते थल्ले की।
Since Sufism is spreading the message of Allah, why do some people say it's not part of Islam?
मुनकर लोग होंदे ने, गल नहीं समझे, वो लोग होंदे ने विच फितने फसाद पवाने वाले लोग होंदे ने, लेकिन सूफियाना जेड़ा माहौल है ना वो ठीक है। उन्होंने अच्छियां गल्लां दसनियां ने, कुरान पढ़ो, नमाज पढ़ो, अच्छी किसी नूं मत दिओ, अच्छा किसी नूं मशवरा दिओ।
It's pretty clear that Sufis in Lahore view themselves as active practitioners of Islam. That leaves us wondering what makes the way they practice their religion so controversial. The answer: might be wondering what the hell's going on, so let me give you some context. There are two main practices of Sufism, dhikr and sama. Dhikr is a kind of meditation that includes intense body movements or dancing, while sama is practiced through listening. The goal of both practices is the complete annihilation of the ego, what Sufis refer to as the nafs. Why do people dance and why is there music?
गल्ले के तुम्हारे मन दी भी फकीर दी सोबत है फकीर दी नमाज समझ लो तुसी जिस दिल च होबेगी जिन्हें शौक है इश्क सरकार ना उन्हें खेलना.
Unfortunately, these practices are not welcomed by everyone.
In recent years, Sufism has unfortunately become more popular in the West because of the various terrorist attacks that have taken place in shrines like the one behind me. This happens because believers here use practices that include music, dance, and other mystic rituals that are considered non-Islamic.
Those extremists, they wanted to go back to the roots of Islam. Islam as it was practiced 14 centuries ago. The rights of women there, slavery, there were so many things which are at odds with the modern values. They call for revivalism. Here we don't do anything un-Islamic. But for them Islam means rituals. For us Islam means the core values it teaches. The values of peace, love, affection, caring, being kind to others, irrespective of their religion.
But why do the people keep coming back?
हमारा तो कोई डर भी नहीं है. हम तो मौला के इश्क में आते हैं इधर. हमारी जान की कोई हमें परवाह नहीं है. ये हमारा इश्क ही ऐसा है कि इसमें जान की कोई परवाह नहीं होती.
Sufism has also been associated with drug use, as addicts often gather in Sufi shrines to get free food and shelter. The actual reason behind this phenomenon is that in Sufism there is actually no discrimination among people. People of all ethnic and religious backgrounds can go in Sufi shrines and get free food and shelter.
The message is universal. Then you cannot say no to anyone. There are like shrines where there are separate places for them to smoke, and that is also a way of accepting everyone. Even people who are sinners, prostitutes also visit these shrines because shrines say no to no one.
Who is allowed to get food?
औलिया कराम की जहाँ दरगाह होगी वहाँ पर लंगर शरीफ होगा. हर कोई आदमी जो भी बीबी औरत बहन बेटी आती है वो आस होती है कि फलानी जगह जाएंगे आज वहाँ पर ये चीज़ मिलेगी. सारा मालिक दी रज़ा.
How do you see the future of Sufism?
The message of Sufism is bound to grow with the technology, with more and more works of Sufis translated into local languages. Probably it offers salvation to the world as well. Because if we start loving each other, if we start seeing God in other human beings, I think humans are bound to love each other rather than hating each other as is currently the case.
Whether or not you agree with the beliefs of Sufism, there's one message we could all learn from. That if we start loving and caring for each other a bit more, the world might just start becoming a better place for all of us.